Close your eyes, or just let them wander for a moment. Imagine waking up to the sound of footsteps on a dusty stone road. Not the honk of traffic or the buzz of your alarm clock, but the soft thud of sandals slapping against sun-baked limestone. You're in Rome now. Ancient Rome. But before you get too comfortable, imagining fountains, togas, or maybe the Colosseum, I have to warn you. You might not survive the day. Let's start with your nose. Rome, you see, smelled different, and not in a good way. If you think modern cities are crowded and chaotic, you haven't smelled a Roman street at noon in the summer. The Roman sewage system was revolutionary, but not always reliable. Sure, the Cloaca Maxima was one of the greatest feats of ancient engineering, a massive drainage canal that kept the city from drowning in filth. But even genius has limits. Most apartment buildings, called insulae, had chamber pots, not bathrooms. And chamber pots don't empty themselves. Every morning, hundreds, maybe thousands, of people would pour their business into the gutters that lined the cobblestone streets. Now imagine that, mixing with fish guts from the market, spoiled wine from last night's feast, and the occasional dead rat. If you're feeling queasy already, you're not alone. Roman citizens developed a skill that modern tourists don't have: selective breathing. But maybe you think I can hold my breath. I'll just walk quickly. Good luck with that. The streets were narrow, really narrow. Some alleys were barely wide enough for a donkey cart. And walking was dangerous. You weren't just dodging crowds. You were avoiding piles of refuse, sudden drainage flows, and the occasional fight between stray dogs. But hey, at least you've got sandals, right? Except, Roman sandals weren't exactly ergonomic. They had no padding, no arch support, and no grip. And they were open-toed, perfect for stepping into whatever the baker's apprentice just dumped out the back door. So maybe you decide to get off the street and into a building. Let's say you've been invited to a Roman domus, a private home. Sounds fancy, right? Inside, it's cooler. There's a central atrium with a shallow pool to collect rainwater. The walls are painted with frescoes, maybe scenes from mythology or landscapes. Everything looks elegant, until you realize there's no glass in the windows, just wooden shutters. So the bugs get in, especially the flies. And there's no real kitchen, just a fire pit in the corner. The cook is sweating, the air is smoky, and your eyes sting. Still want to stay? Let's talk about what you might eat. Maybe some fresh bread, a little fruit. Well, yes. But remember, there's no refrigeration. Meat spoils quickly, so it's either dried, salted, or heavily spiced to mask the smell. You might be served garum, a fermented fish sauce that Romans absolutely loved. Imagine soy sauce mixed with anchovies and left to rot in the sun. Bon appetit. Or maybe you get lucky. Maybe you're invited to a banquet. You sit on a couch, reclining like a proper Roman elite. Slaves bring you trays of roasted dormice, honeyed dates, and boiled snails. You smile politely. You chew slowly. You wonder if you're going to be sick. Now maybe you're thinking, okay, but Romans were clean, right? They had baths. True. Public baths were everywhere. Part gym, part spa, part gossip center. You could spend hours there, sweating, soaking, getting massaged. But the water wasn't exactly filtered. And everyone shared the same pool. And the same sponges. Yes, sponges. Romans didn't use toilet paper. They used communal sponges attached to sticks, dipped in vinegar between uses. Let that sink in. And now imagine you're the 100th person to use it today. Still want to visit? But okay, say you make it to the evening. You survived the smells, the sandals, the garum, and the sponge stick. You're tired. You lie down in your rented room, a small corner of an insula several stories up. The stairs are steep. The walls are thin. The fire hazard is real. You close your eyes. And then, someone shouts in the street. A cart crashes into a post. A cat screams. Someone is playing a flute badly. And you remember, the Romans didn't have soundproofing. You roll over. You sigh. And you wonder, how did they do it? They did it because they didn't know any different. They didn't have Netflix or noise-canceling headphones. They didn't have refrigerators or padded shoes. They didn't have antibiotics or allergy meds. They had sandals, garum, chamber pots, and sponge sticks. And still, they built an empire. So maybe, just maybe, they were tougher than we give them credit for. But would you survive a day? Maybe. But I wouldn't bet on it. Let's pick up where we left off. You've survived your first chaotic morning in ancient Rome, barely. You stepped in something unspeakable, nearly got run over by a chariot, and bravely turned down a plate of fermented fish sauce. Now, sweaty and dusty from the crowded streets, someone suggests the most Roman of remedies. The baths. You've heard about them. Everyone has. But no guidebook can really prepare you for what's inside. It begins with a building, not grand from the outside, but massive in size. You enter through a shaded archway. The floor under your feet is mosaic, tiny colored tiles forming images of dolphins, sea gods, or wrestlers frozen in mid-grapple. The first room is warm. Not hot, just cozy. This is the apoditerium, the changing room. You look around, but there are no lockers. Just stone benches and a few niches in the wall. A slave offers to guard your belongings, but there's no guarantee they'll still be there when you return. Theft is common. You take a deep breath and undress. Yes, everything. Romans bathe nude. The next room is hotter, the tepidarium. Steam hangs in the air like fog. Your skin begins to glisten. You can smell oil, sweat, and faintly, something earthy. Mold, maybe. The stone walls sweat just like the people do. Everything is damp. You sit on a stone bench, slick with condensation, and wait. People are talking. Not loudly, but constantly. This is Rome's gossip mill. Deals are made. Affairs are confessed. Rivalries begin, and sometimes end, with a quiet word in this room. You hear talk of Caesar's latest edict. A senator's wife caught with a poet. Bread prices going up again. Even the slaves whisper here. Because in the tepidarium, everyone is equal. More or less. Then comes the caldarium, the hot room. And it is hot. The air scalds your nostrils. Your feet sting on the tile. You sit carefully on a wooden platform, slick with oil, and you sweat like never before. This is where Romans open their pores. Detoxify. Let go. Or, if you're not used to it, get dizzy. A servant offers to rub you down with oil and then scrape it off with a metal tool called a strigil. It sounds relaxing until it begins, a scraping motion that feels halfway between a massage and a mild exfoliation with a butter knife. Still, you endure it. You don't want to look soft. You're in Rome. But the real surprise comes in the next room, the frigidarium. The cold plunge. Romans believed in balance. After fire, ice. You step into the pool. At first just a toe. Then, shock. It's freezing. Not cold shower, cold. Mountain stream cold. Your skin contracts. Your breath hitches. But everyone else is doing it. So you do too. And strangely, you feel better. Invigorated. Awake. Almost alive again. Outside the pool, you wrap yourself in a linen cloth, barely a towel. You sit by the window, watching sunbeams fall across the stone floor. And then you notice there's moss in the corner, dark patches on the ceiling, the sweet, sickly scent of mildew that never quite leaves. Because these buildings, magnificent as they are old and full of water. Every day, hundreds of bodies sweat, splash, and steam within these walls. The moisture seeps into everything, and over time, the walls begin to rot. But Rome doesn't stop. The baths are cleaned occasionally, scrubbed with vinegar, swept, sometimes drained. But not sterilized, not bleached, not filtered. You wonder how many people have stepped in this water before you. You wonder if any of them were sick. You wonder if you should have brought sandals. But the man beside you just yawns. He's done this 1,000 times. And he's still alive. So maybe it's fine. You leave the baths drier, warmer, and strangely, lighter. The world feels quieter now. You walk outside into the blinding sun, blinking as your eyes adjust. Your skin is clean, or at least cleaner than it was. Your hair smells like cedar oil. Your stomach growls. It's time for lunch. But first, you hear someone calling out in the forum. A debate is breaking out near the Senate. Someone's shouting about taxes. Someone else is shouting back. And someone, always, is trying to sell you olives. You sigh. Rome doesn't rest. Not even after a bath. You head back toward your room, stepping carefully this time. You dodge a fresh pile of something. You nod politely to a woman leading a goat on a string. You pass a statue of a god whose name you can't quite remember. And just as you're about to reach your doorway, you feel something cold splash on your shoulder. You look up. A window shutter closes slowly above you. Someone just dumped their wash water. Or maybe not wash water. You sigh again. You are clean. For about 2 minutes. And now, you're Roman. So, you've survived the morning streets of Rome. You've endured the pungent realities of Roman hygiene. You even braved the communal baths with grace. But now, something isn't right. You woke up feeling strange. Your head is heavy. Your limbs feel like they've been dipped in lead. Your mouth is dry. Your eyes burn. And your stomach, it turns like a broken water wheel. Congratulations. You're sick. Welcome to ancient Rome. Now, before you start looking for a doctor, pause. Because the word doctor doesn't quite mean what it means today. There's no white coat, no stethoscope, no clipboard with your name misspelled. Instead, imagine this. A man in a stained tunic, reeking faintly of vinegar, garlic, and old wool. He's holding a bronze scalpel and a sponge soaked in wine. He smiles at you like someone who's seen things. Awful things. This is your medicus. And he's going to help. Maybe. The first thing he'll ask, what did you eat? Because Romans believed illness began in the stomach. Too much wine. Too many figs. A fish that smelled off. You probably deserved this. Then he checks your humors. That's right, humors. According to Roman medical theory, your body is governed by 4 invisible fluids. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Get them out of balance, and trouble begins. So what's the solution? You guessed it. Let them out. The most common treatment for fever? Bloodletting. Out comes the knife, small, dull, and slightly rusted. You lie back on a wooden bench while your doctor ties a leather strap around your arm. He mutters something about relieving the pressure and drawing out the heat. Then, a slice. The blood flows. You feel light-headed. Not better, just lighter. And he smiles, satisfied. If the fever breaks, he takes credit. If you faint, he blames your weak constitution. But maybe you're lucky. Maybe your doctor prefers leeches. Yes, actual leeches. He retrieves a small clay pot from under the table. Inside, a wriggling mass of black, slick creatures twists like a bowl of living ink. He selects one with practiced fingers. It attaches quickly, with a tiny bite. And then, it feeds. You watch, horrified and fascinated, as your blood disappears into its swelling body. This is medicine. Still not working. Time for herbs. Romans used hundreds, some helpful, some deadly. Willow bark for pain. Rue for cramps. Mint for nausea. Wormwood for, well, most things. Your doctor crushes dried leaves in a mortar and mixes them with warm wine. You drink. It burns. Then he hands you a charm, a small amulet tied with red thread. You need protection, he says. From what? You ask. Evil spirits, he answers very seriously. Because even in the heart of the empire, superstition still ruled. And what if you're really unlucky? What if the illness is serious? Then comes the word no Roman wants to hear. Surgery. Roman surgery was bold. No anesthesia. No antibiotics. No sterilization. Just a man with a steady hand, a sharp knife, and a lot of vinegar. They could amputate a limb, remove bladder stones, drain abscesses, trepan the skull. Yes, they drilled holes into skulls. For headaches. Imagine the sound, the scrape of metal on bone, the pressure, and all of it, fully awake. But maybe you don't go to a doctor. Maybe you trust the healer woman instead, the medica, who works quietly in the shadows of the market. She's not official, not licensed, not Roman enough, but her remedies smell of lavender and honey. Her hands are cool, her voice is calm, and she doesn't bleed you. She listens. She gives you soup. She tells you to sleep, and you do. And maybe, just maybe, you feel better. But healing takes time, and time moves differently in ancient Rome. There are no digital clocks, no daily pills, no automated reminders. You rest on a straw mattress in a hot, dusty room. You sweat through the night. You sip water from a clay cup that smells faintly of old wine. Outside, the world continues. Carts creak, children shout, priests chant. Inside, you drift, between fever dreams and the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer. And somewhere you realize, in Rome, getting sick was never just a problem. It was a gamble. And even if you recover, you're marked. Illness weakens you. People notice. In a world without germ theory, people still feared contagion, even if they didn't understand it. You're avoided for a while. Whispers follow you. The baker serves you last. The water carrier looks away. But Rome is busy, and soon it forgets. You return to the baths. You walk the streets. You survive. But you remember. The knife. The leech. The prayer. And you wonder, was that healing? Or just surviving? The sun is high now. Your fever has faded, mostly. Your stomach rumbles. Time to eat. But you're not heading to a restaurant. There are no restaurants in Rome. not the way we know them. Instead, you're going to the Forum Boreum, the Roman marketplace. Not one building, not one tidy square, but a sprawling, pulsing, shouting, steaming maze of stalls, carts, shadows, and smells. Let's take a walk. You enter from the west, beneath a columned arch, already sticky with old posters and temple notices. Immediately, you're met with sound. Shouting, singing, arguing, barking, coins clinking. The scent, a mix of crushed herbs, olive oil, sweating goats, fresh bread, fish that is not fresh, and something burning. You're not sure if it's food or fabric. You inhale cautiously. The first thing you see is a row of vegetable vendors, women sitting on woven mats, surrounded by baskets. Turnips, onions, garlic bulbs with roots still dangling. A child nearby picks through bruised plums. His face and hands are sticky. You hear an old man arguing about the price of lentils. The vendor swears they were picked this morning. He swears they were picked last week. No one agrees, and somehow no one leaves. This is how business is done. Next up, the spice stalls. You're drawn in by color. Crushed saffron, golden and powdery. Paprika-red chilies from Hispania. Dried bay leaves and bundles of thyme, hanging like ancient wreaths. A man in a purple scarf whispers, "Need something special?" He opens a pouch. It's nothing you recognize. Smells like earth and lemon and smoke. He calls it moon powder. Claims it cures hiccups, heartbreak, and hexes. You raise an eyebrow. He winks. You move on. You pass butchers next, men with arms like marble statues, knives clinking against bones. A boar's head stares at you from a hook. A line of flies dances near its tongue. No refrigeration means today's meat is today's problem. The butchers know this. They salt heavily, slice quickly, and yell even louder. One offers you a strip of dried goat. You decline. Another laughs and hands you a fig. You accept. Small victories. At the center of the market, fishmongers. And here, things get complicated. Because fish, in Rome, is sacred. Not religiously, but culturally. The fresher the fish, the richer the man. Whole social hierarchies swirl around who gets first pick. A woman in fine linen lifts a tuna by the gill and smells it slowly, like a perfumer. The vendor nods solemnly. It's a ritual. But behind her, a boy dumps a bucket of shrimp into a trough already buzzing with flies. Balance. Further down, you discover the bakers. And here, finally, peace. Warmth. Crust. Flour dust in sunbeams. Round loaves marked with deep crosses. Long flatbreads stacked like scrolls. Some with olives, some with herbs. Bread is the lifeblood of Rome. So much so, the government gives it out, sometimes freely, sometimes as bribes. Bread and circuses, remember? You buy a roll. Still warm. You tear it slowly, and for the first time today, you smile. Beyond the food lies another world. Traders of goods. Tunics dyed with indigo. Bronze hairpins. Dice carved from bone. Mirrors polished until you can almost see your reflection. And of course, amulets. Small figurines. Painted charms. Strings of colored stones. All sold with promises. This one wards off fever. This one protects unborn children. This one keeps your husband faithful. You don't believe it, but you buy one anyway, just in case. Not far from here, a woman reads palms. Her stall is small, A single stool and a mat with faded symbols. People queue. She doesn't smile much, but her hands are gentle and her eyes sharp. She tells a merchant his son will betray him. She tells a servant girl she'll marry her master. She looks at you and says nothing, just nods. Sometimes silence is the strongest omen. Then a commotion. A thief. He's young, quick, already halfway down the alley with a pouch of stolen coins. The stall owner shouts. Others follow. You stand frozen. And then it's over. No one catches him. No one seems surprised. This is Rome. Every market comes with a little chaos. You've spent hours now, walking, watching, tasting, trading. The sun begins to slide. Shadows stretch. Vendors pack slowly, reluctantly. Bread is sold cheaper. Fish is dumped. The spice seller gives one last wink. You head home with a loaf of bread, a string of garlic, a small, questionably effective amulet, and the weight of 1,000 ancient footsteps behind you. You didn't just shop. You lived in Rome today, and somehow survived it. You've bought your bread. You've avoided the pickpockets. You've had just enough of ancient Rome for one day. Now, home. But before you get too comfortable, a gentle reminder. You don't live in a villa. You're not a senator, a merchant, or even a wealthy priest. You live in an insula, a Roman apartment building. And it's a lot less romantic than it sounds. From the outside, it doesn't look terrible. Tall, yes, up to 5 stories in some parts. Made of brick, timber, and plaster. Narrow wooden balconies stretch out like crooked eyebrows. Laundry flutters in the wind like prayer flags. But the closer you get, the more the building groans. Literally. It leans slightly to the left. The staircase is inside, if you can call it that. More like a spiraling tunnel of creaky wood and old stone, lit by fading oil lamps, if any at all. You take a breath and climb. The first floor is quiet. That's where the wealthy tenants live. Not rich, but richer than you. They have stone walls, maybe a window, maybe even their own latrine. Their oil lamps stay lit longer. Their doors are thicker. They sometimes have servants. You nod politely as you pass. You don't stop. You climb. The second floor is louder. Someone's cooking lentils. You can smell the cumin. Someone else is singing, badly. A child cries. A man shouts. Then, silence. Then another child cries. Welcome home. You keep going. By the third floor, the plaster on the walls begins to crumble. The staircase narrows. Your foot brushes something soft. You don't look down. You squeeze past a bucket, 2 pigeons, and a woman holding a loaf of bread in her teeth while unlocking her door. You nod again. She grunts. Your room. It's on the 4th floor. Why? Because it's cheap. And because no one wants to carry firewood up that high. You reach the door. It's not locked. There's no real lock. Just a rope tied through the handle. You untie it, push it open, and step inside. The room is small. Not studio apartment, small. More like 1 bed, 1 oil lamp, 1 basin of water small. The floor is packed dirt, covered with a faded mat. The walls are cracked and uneven, with messages scratched into them in Latin and something else. You hope it's Latin. There's 1 window, more a hole, really, with a curtain made from an old tunic. The air is thick with dust, breadcrumbs, and oil smoke. But it's yours. You sit. The floor creaks. Something shifts under your mat, Probably a mouse. You don't mind. It's too hot to care. You pour a little water into a clay cup and sip. It tastes of tin and time. You tear a piece of bread. Still warm. Still real. Then you hear it. A thud. Then another. Then shouting below. You rush to the window. A fire has broken out 2 floors down. You see smoke. Flames licking at a curtain. A man shouting for water. A woman trying to pull a crying child from the hallway. You don't panic. This happens often. Insuli were made quickly and badly. Wood, straw, cloth, everything flammable. Everything dry. No fire escapes. No alarms. No trained response teams. Just shouting. Buckets and hope. You grab your things, which is to say, your sandals and your loaf of bread. You tie the tunic curtain around your face. You open the door. Smoke curls into the hallway. You descend quickly, dodging neighbors, baskets, and a man carrying a goat over his shoulder. You reach the street. You cough. And you watch. As the smoke rises. Eventually, it dies down. Someone put it out, or it burned itself out. No one's sure. You see 2 men arguing over whose pot started it. No one listens. Because this isn't the first fire. And it won't be the last. Later, once the air clears, you return to your room. The smell lingers. Your mat is damp with smoke. You lie down anyway. Outside, people laugh, louder now. There's music. There's life. Because in Rome, even a fire isn't enough to stop the night. You stare at the ceiling. You count the cracks. You close your eyes. And somewhere between the shouting and the silence, you sleep. Evening has fallen. But the city doesn't sleep. Not yet. Not even close. Because in Rome, true Rome, the night is not an ending. It's an opening. A soft exhale after the sun's sharp breath. A time when the edges of the day blur, and the streets begin to whisper. Let's take a walk. You step outside. The air is cooler now. Not cold. Rome rarely is. But the heat has retreated into the stones, the walls, the bricks that breathed fire all afternoon. Now, they only smolder. You can smell oil lamps, their sweet, smoky scent trailing like lazy fireflies. Someone just dumped a pot of stew into the alley. A cat investigates. You nod to it. It doesn't nod back. The streets are different at night. Not silent, never silent, but gentler. Softer footsteps. Laughter instead of shouting. The clang of coins replaced by the trill of a flute. Somewhere far off, a tune wobbly with wine and pride. You follow it. Not to chase it, just to listen. On the corner, 2 young men sit on a marble bench, passing a cup of wine, arguing about poetry. One quotes Virgil. The other prefers Ovid. Neither remembers the lines quite right. They laugh anyway. Behind them, an old man snores, slumped against a statue of Mars, his sandals off, his dreams somewhere in the Republic. A woman with silver rings sweeps the steps of a closed taberna. She hums softly. You don't recognize the song. But it fits. You turn onto a narrow street. Oil lamps flicker in clay brackets above each door, casting long, golden shadows that shiver as you pass. A group of children run past, barefoot, chasing each other with sticks. One wears a crown made of fig leaves. The others call him Emperor. He trips. They all collapse in laughter. Somewhere, a mother scolds them. They ignore her, because tonight belongs to them. Then, music. Real music. Not just flutes or clapping or drunk humming, but lyres, drums, a woman's voice rising like smoke. You follow it to a courtyard, half hidden behind a crumbling archway. Inside, a gathering. Not a party, too relaxed. Not a ritual, too casual. Just Romans being Romans. Sitting on pillows. Drinking from shared cups. Passing dates. Sharing stories. Singing songs about battles, bad weather, and love lost on wrong roads. No invitations. You just walk in, and they make room. A man hands you a fig. You nod in thanks. Someone offers wine, sour but honest. You sip. It burns slightly. You feel it settle behind your eyes. A woman begins to sing again. This time, slower, lower. A song about a sailor who never returned. No one speaks. Even the children go still. Just the voice. And the stars. Later, a philosopher joins the circle. He smells of ink and onions. He speaks of time, how it loops like a snake, how everything returns, how Rome will one day fall and rise again and fall once more. No one argues. But no one really listens either. They just nod. Because everyone in Rome knows. Philosophers talk. That's what they do. You leave quietly. The night is deep now. The moon rests above the rooftops like a silver coin lost in a dark purse. Dogs bark somewhere, not angry, just busy. Someone plays dice in the alley. You hear the rattle, the groan, the soft curse of a man who bet too much. You don't stop. You don't need to win or lose tonight. You've already seen enough. You return home. The stairs creak less in the cool. Your room smells of smoke, but it's familiar now. You lie down. The fig still sweet on your tongue. The music echoing in your mind. And just before sleep takes you, you think, Rome never really sleeps. It only lowers its voice. Morning again. This time, earlier. You were told to get there before sunrise. Because today is a game day. Not board games. Not festivals. Today, you go to the Amphitheatrum Flavium, the Flavian Amphitheater. But most know it by another name. The Colosseum. And it is massive. Even from blocks away, you hear it. A low rumble, like thunder trapped under stone. Vendors calling out bread and olives. Children chasing pigeons. Men in armor, real or costume, you're not sure, posing for coins. And beyond them, arches, stone, shadow, sun. The Colosseum rises not just as a building, but as a symbol. Of power, of pride, of spectacle. You join the line. Inside, it opens like a great stone mouth. Thousands of seats. Tens of thousands of eyes. The air smells of sweat, dust, and roasted nuts. You find a spot high in the Menianum Summum in Lignius, the cheap seats. Wood. Creaky. Far from the action, but you're here. You sit. You wait. And then, a horn. The crowd stirs. First, the Venetians. Animal hunts. Traps open. Cages roll. Out come lions, panthers, bears from the farthest reaches of the empire. Men enter with nets and spears. Not gladiators, hunters. Some skilled, some unlucky. The fights are real. The roars, unforgettable. Sometimes the animals win, and sometimes they don't. Next, executions. Quick, public, dramatic. Condemned criminals, tied to posts or made to act in twisted replays of myths. Orpheus torn apart by beasts, Prometheus bound, Icarus pushed from scaffolds. You shift in your seat. Some cheer. Some turn away. The Colosseum doesn't flinch. Then, silence. A different kind of tension. The crowd murmurs. Drums beat slowly. The gates open again. And gladiators walk out. Not just fighters. Symbols. Trained, fed, admired, feared. Some volunteers. Some slaves. Some fallen soldiers. Each carries a weapon that has a name. A story. You notice one, tall, scarred, steady. He carries a trident and a net. A retiarius. His opponent, short sword, curved shield, heavy armor. A secutor. They nod once. The crowd chants something rhythmic. You don't catch the words. But the meaning. Fight. The clash is fast. Faster than you expect. Sand flies. The net is thrown. Misses. The sword slices. Glances off. Back and forth. Stalking. Circling. Until the retiarius stumbles. The crowd gasps. He falls. The secutor raises his blade. But pauses. Looks up. To the crowd. Because here, it's not just about winning. It's about performance. And mercy. The emperor isn't here today. So the people decide. Thumbs sideways. Indecision. A man in the front row, draped in red, stands, lifts both arms, and lowers them. The secutor nods. Spare. The retiarius breathes again. Later, the final match. Two champions. Both famous. One with a curved blade, scissor. The other with a net of silver threads. This one is for honor. And for show. Blood spills. But slowly. Elegantly. Until one falls and doesn't rise. The crowd explodes in sound. A sound that shakes your chest, your spine, your teeth. Glory and death. Hand in hand. You leave before the last act. Your head is heavy. Your throat dry. You've seen more than you meant to. But less than most. Because for Romans, this isn't horror. It's tradition. A test of skill. A celebration of discipline, bravery, fate. You walk back through sunlit streets, past statues and stones, and somewhere, in the back of your mind, you wonder, if you had been born here, would you cheer? Or would you fight? After the Colosseum, the blood, the cheers, the heat, you seek something quieter, somewhere cooler, not in temperature, but in tone. So you walk. Past merchants repacking olives. Past boys chasing hoops down alleys. Past a statue of Minerva whose eyes seem to follow you. And you arrive. At the foot of wide marble steps. A temple. It rises before you, white, massive, weathered by centuries of prayers and pigeons. Fluted columns stretch skyward like tree trunks made of stone. Each creak under the weight of heaven and history. The entrance is shadowed, not from darkness, but reverence. A place where even light whispers. You take a breath, and climb. Inside, coolness, stillness, and silence. Not absence, presence. The air smells of burnt resin, crushed laurel, and old wool. Candles flicker gently, not enough to see clearly, just enough to remind you this is not your space. It belongs to someone older, and far more powerful. Before you is the altar. Plain, simple, but worn smooth by thousands of offerings. Fruit, coins, bread, wine, even tiny clay figures of animals and people, left in hope or thanks. The priest nearby nods once, a subtle gesture that means, you may approach, but tread softly. You do. To your left, a woman kneels, her hands clasped, her shoulders shaking. She prays for her child, or her husband, or maybe herself. No one asks. To your right, a boy lights a candle, then leaves without a word. A man places a coin, touches the altar 3 times, and whispers something in Greek. You don't speak Greek, but it feels sacred. You walk slowly. Your sandals echo softly on the stone. The ceiling rises high above you, painted stars long faded, chipped by time. But still you can feel them. You stop at a side niche. Inside, a statue, Juno, goddess of women, marriage, and motherhood. She looks ahead, her marble eyes stern but patient. You wonder how many women cried here. How many marriages were begged to be saved? How many were not? Further on, you find Mars, god of war. Sword raised, muscles taut. But even he stands silent. Because here, in this space, even gods bow to something deeper. Faith. Not just belief in the divine, but belief in meaning. That every illness has a reason. That every storm is a lesson. That every victory was blessed. You think of the games this morning. The blood. The cheers. You wonder which gods watched. You wonder if they approved. And then you wonder if approval ever mattered. The priest approaches. He's old. Wears a woolen shawl, speckled with ash. He carries a small bowl of oil and herbs. Would you like to offer something? He asks, voice barely louder than breath. You nod. You reach into your pouch. A small coin. Not much, but enough. He takes it, places it on the altar, whispers a blessing, then steps back. The moment lingers, and then fades. You bow your head once. No grand prayer. No thunder. No sudden light. Just peace. The kind that lives in old walls and shared silence. You turn. You step out of the temple. Back into the sun. The sounds return. Slowly. Wheels. Voices. Life. But you carry something with you. Something still. And strangely strong. They say, all roads lead to Rome. But what they don't tell you is that every road also leads away. And sometimes you need to leave the marble, the noise, the market smells and gladiator songs and temple shadows. Sometimes you just need to walk. So today, you do. You begin outside the city gate. The Porta Appia, a stone arch, grand but weathered, chipped by generations of cartwheels and sandals and storms. Beyond it stretches the Via Appia, the Appian Way, one of the oldest and most important roads in the Roman Empire. Built in 312 BCE. Still walked today. Still whispering stories with every step. The first thing you notice, the stones. Large, flat, uneven slabs, worn smooth in the middle by centuries of feet and hooves. They shine slightly, even in soft light. Not slippery, just ancient. Each one was placed by hand. No machines. Just muscle, math, and stubborn will. You walk. On either side, tombs. Stone monuments. Family names. Inscriptions. Statues. This was the Roman way. To bury the dead outside the city, but not too far. So the living would remember. And the dead could still listen. You pass one shaped like a tower. Another carved with lions. A third, broken, but still standing, says simply, "To Lucia, who loved figs." You nod. And keep going. Soon the tombs fade, and fields begin. Wheat. Grapes. Olive trees. Low stone walls mark boundaries. Cows blink lazily in the sun. A shepherd dozes under a pine, his dog keeping watch. It's quiet, but not empty, because Rome is always here. Even in silence, even in distance, you hear wheels. A carriage passes, wooden, loud, pulled by two dusty mules. Inside, a merchant, half asleep, his robes rumpled, his coin pouch clutched tightly. He doesn't wave. He doesn't need to. Everyone is traveling somewhere. Everyone has a reason. You stop by a milestone. A real one. Round. Solid. Weather-stained. It reads, MP6, from Rome, mile 6. Roman miles, of course. Roughly 1,000 paces, about 1,480 meters. You've walked 6. Your feet know it. But you feel good. Because Roman roads were built not just for walking, but for conquest. They stretched across Europe, through forests, over mountains, across deserts. More than 400,000 kilometers of roads, engineered with layers of gravel, stone, sand, crowned for drainage, lined with curbs. Some straight as arrows for miles, others bending gently with the land. All with one purpose: to connect and to control. You pass a soldier on foot, off duty, his armor wrapped in cloth, his expression unreadable. He nods. You nod back. Neither of you speaks, but both of you understand. These roads weren't built for peace. They were built to move armies. Fast, efficient, unstoppable. Later, you reach a way station. A small building, 2 rooms. One for resting, one for stabling animals. You sit by a well. Drink slowly. Watch the dust settle on your sandals. A woman arrives with 2 donkeys, both limping. She offers you a date. You accept. She doesn't ask where you're going. She just says, "Be careful. There's rain north." You thank her, and continue. As the sun begins to fall, the stones glow orange. You're tired now, but it's a good tired. Not the kind that comes from running errands or fighting crowds, but the kind earned from quiet, steady movement, from listening, from being part of something older than yourself. You stop, look back. Rome, distant, golden, alive. You smile, because for a moment, on this road, you're not a visitor. You're Roman. You're back. Back in Rome. Back among the rooftops and red tiles, the shouts and sandals, the bells of the bread sellers and the whispers of the olive men. Your muscles ache from walking the Via Appia. Your legs are tired. Your tunic dusty. Your feet unspeakable. You know where to go. Not home. Not yet. The baths. But this time, you notice things. You've been here before, yes. But now, the steam feels different. The water, deeper. The voices, sharper. Because the baths aren't just about cleansing the body. They're where Rome speaks. Where it gossips. Where it breathes. You step into the apoditorium, the changing room. You disrobe like before. But now you listen. 2 men argue in hushed Latin near a bench. Something about wheat shipments delayed at Ostia. A woman laughs nearby, not out of amusement, but strategy. She's married to a magistrate. The man she's laughing with is not her husband. No one cares. Or rather, everyone cares, but no one says it out loud. You understand now. In the tepidarium, you ease into the mist. But this time, you sit closer to the wall.
Why?
Because it echoes. You can hear snippets from the other side. The consul's brother is being investigated. Don't trust Lucius, he sold fake wine again. She paid the priest to fake the omen. You're not eavesdropping. You're participating. That's how it works. The caldarium is more crowded than usual. A poet is reciting something about love and figs. No one really listens, but everyone lets him finish. He bows dramatically. Someone claps, once, then returns to scrubbing his elbow. You sit on the stone bench. Your skin slick, your pores wide. A strigil scrapes gently across your shoulder. The servant hums while working. A tune from the provinces, not Latin, but rhythmic. You close your eyes. You feel the oil, the scrape, the steam. But you also feel eyes. Not staring, just watching. Here, rank disappears. Clothes are gone. Titles mean little when everyone is sweating in a cloud. But still, alliances form. Power shifts. Deals begin. In whispers. You move to the frigidarium. The cold shocks you back to clarity. You surface, gasp, blink. Across from you, two men speak in Greek. You only catch parts. Cicero's speech. The Eastern trade route. Bribes, always bribes. And then laughter. The kind of laughter that covers secrets. You dry off. A towel is handed to you. You thank the boy. He doesn't respond. He's already helping someone richer. You don't mind. You're clean. Outside, the sun is lower. But your mind is brighter. You know more than when you entered. Not just about yourself, but about Rome. Because here, in the baths, water flows. But so does information. You walk home slowly. A warm haze follows you. You remember what the old man once said in the market. If you want bread, go to the baker. If you want wine, go to the tavern. But if you want the truth, go to the baths. Rome shouts. It sings, it argues, it crashes carts into corners and sells garlic 3 decibels too loud. But somewhere, tucked between a temple and a wine stall, is a place where Rome whispers, where it reads, and where it remembers. Today, you're not chasing bread. You're chasing books. Or more accurately, scrolls. Because bound books, as you know them, don't quite exist yet. You pass the forum, duck into a shaded side street, and see it. A low stone building with a wooden door half open. Faded lettering above it reads, Bibliopola, bookseller. You step inside. The smell hits you first. Not musty, not dusty, but warm, like dried parchment, ink, old leather, beeswax, and thyme. It's quiet. No shouting. Just soft footsteps, the rustle of robes, and the dry crackle of turning pages. Scrolls line the walls, stacked in cubbyholes, bundled with twine, tagged with slivers of colored string. Greek, Latin, some in Egyptian script. A boy dusts the shelves gently with a feather. An old man behind a stone counter scribbles in a ledger with a reed pen. He glances at you, then looks back down. No greeting, just acceptance. You walk slowly. No one rushes here. You pass scrolls labeled. Cicero, Speeches. Seneca, On the Shortness of Life. Virgil, Aeneid. Medical Treatises. Galen, Partial Copy. Horoscopes, Miscellaneous. On Chickens and Omens. You pause at that last one. You wonder if it's comedy, or religion, or both. You pull out a scroll. Light. Fragile. The ink is still legible, barely. You read. The man who conquers himself is greater than the man who conquers a city. You pause. You read it again. You don't say it aloud, but you hear it, somewhere deeper than the ears. Words like this, they don't expire. They don't rust. They echo. Further back, you find the scriptorium, where new copies are made. 3 men sit at low desks. One reads aloud in a slow, dry voice. The other 2 copy with careful strokes, ink, pause, breath, ink again. It takes days, sometimes weeks, to copy a single text. There is no printing press. Only patience. And hands. Lots of hands. The bookseller finally looks at you. He speaks quietly. Looking for something in particular? You think, what would you ask? A map. A poem. A manual on how to live. You smile and say, something true. He raises an eyebrow, then walks to a back shelf. He returns with a small scroll, worn, tied with faded red cord. He says, it's not about gods, not about war, just about bread and family and how to carry water without spilling it. You take it, because somehow that feels like everything. You pay with 2 small coins. He nods. Then, almost as an afterthought, he adds, take care. Books remember, even when people forget. You leave. Back into Rome. Back into noise. But the scroll is in your pouch now. And part of you has changed. You sit on a step just outside the shop. You open it. The handwriting is uneven. The ink smudged. But the words are alive. Not loud. Not proud. Just steady. Like footsteps or breath. The sun is sinking. Shadows stretch. Torches flicker to life. And the air begins to smell like roasted meat and warm bread. Because in Rome, evening means eating. But not everyone eats the same way. You pass an alley where a group of laborers sit on overturned crates, eating barley porridge from shared bowls. No silver. No ceremony. Just spoons, laughter, and stained tunics. One man tears bread with his teeth, hands the rest to a friend. They drink watered-down wine, strong enough to forget the day, but not enough to lose tomorrow. They call this dinner, and they mean it. But you've been invited to a domus, a Roman home. Not a palace, but grand enough. Owned by a merchant who once traded grain with Egypt and now grows figs just outside the city. Tonight is a convivium, a proper dinner party. And that means formality, hierarchy, and courses. Many, many courses. You arrive just after sunset. The atrium is lit by oil lamps, their flames swaying like dancers. Slaves guide you in, take your sandals, wash your hands with rose-scented water. Someone offers a garland for your head. You hesitate, then accept. You're not here to stand out. You're here to observe. The triclinium, dining room, is prepared. 3 couches, arranged in a U-shape around a low table. Guests recline on their left sides, feet out, propped on cushions. You do the same. Not gracefully, but no one laughs. The host arrives, draped in crimson, smiling widely. He claps once. The feast begins. First course, gustaccio, the appetizer. Small bites. Olives soaked in vinegar and fennel. Boiled eggs dusted with cumin. Oysters, fresh, briny, slippery. You sip mulsum, wine mixed with honey, sweet and sharp. The conversation is light. Philosophy, weather, politics, but only the safe kind. Everyone performs. Everyone listens. Second course, prima mensa, the main meal. Roast duck, stuffed with dates and herbs. Lamb glazed in fish sauce. Garum, again. Lentils. Chickpeas. Leeks baked under cheese. And dormice. Yes, small rodents, roasted whole, rolled in poppy seeds and honey. A delicacy. You hesitate. Then try one. Crispy. Sweet. Slightly terrifying. But you smile. Because everyone is watching. Music begins. A flute. Soft. A young girl recites lines from Virgil. The host interrupts with a joke, something about Greek poets and bad wine. Everyone laughs. Even the flute. Third course, secunda mensa, dessert. Baked pears. Almond cakes. More wine. And fruit, always fruit. Grapes. Figs. Dates soaked in syrup. They say a Roman's wealth can be judged by his fruit. Tonight, you eat well. Then come the toasts. One to the emperor. One to the host. One, oddly, to the moon. You join in. You're not sure why. But it feels right. Later, the guests loosen their robes. The talk turns bolder. Stories of past lovers, near-death escapes, absurd omens. The host lifts a cup and says, "Food fills the belly, but stories fill the night." Everyone nods. Even the servant, standing by the door, smiles, just barely. Because he's heard this one before. But it's still true. As the night deepens, the torches burn lower. Someone begins to sing, badly. Someone else spills wine. You lie back, full but not uncomfortable. Buzzed but still thinking. And you realize, this wasn't just a meal. It was a performance. A mirror of power. A test of manners. A chance to belong, even briefly, in the theater of Roman society. And tonight, you passed. You leave in silence. The stars are brighter now. The air is still warm. You walk past the alley from earlier. The workers are gone. Only crumbs remain. And somewhere far away, a dog barks once, then stops. You smile. Because Rome may eat differently. But everyone goes to bed with a full stomach and a story. You've seen the city in sunlight. You've watched gladiators bleed and senators boast. You've read poems, tasted honey-roasted mice, and walked roads older than memory. But tonight, you notice something else. Something quieter, darker, not in the sky, but in the eyes of people. Because even the bravest Roman, even the most learned philosopher, knows. There are things you don't speak aloud. You feel it as you pass a doorway. A small pouch tied above the lintel, leather, faded, stuffed with herbs and ash. A bulla, a charm to ward off evil. No one touches it. No one explains it. It just is. And no one questions that. You turn a corner and see a merchant sprinkle salt in a perfect circle around his stall. He doesn't make eye contact. You pretend not to notice. Everyone pretends. That's how superstition survives. Not in shouts, but in silence. The woman next door won't leave her home on Dies Atri, the black days. They're marked on no official calendar, yet everyone seems to know them. Days when the gods frown, when omens sting, when accidents happen more often, and explanations feel thinner. You ask her how she knows which days are black. She just says, "You feel it." In the forum, a boy refuses to sweep toward the east. "Bad luck," he mutters. A soldier touches his right shoulder 3 times before drawing his sword. A baker won't start his ovens if a raven caws nearby. Coincidence? Maybe. But in Rome, coincidence is just a lazy god. You enter a home, briefly, and see a statue of Lar, the household spirit, tucked in a corner. A cup of wine sits before it, untouched. It's not for drinking. It's an offering, a daily one. Because Romans didn't believe their homes were empty. They believed they were shared. With spirits, with ancestors, with things that came before and stayed. You pass a man in a white robe drawing lines in the dirt. He has a staff, a bird cage, and eyes that never blink. He's an augur, a reader of signs. He watches the birds, their flight, their speed, their direction, and from this he reads the will of the gods. Should I marry? Should we go to war? Is today a good day to travel? He answers without words, just nods, or shakes his head, and people believe him, because sometimes it's easier than deciding. Even emperors listen to omens. Julius Caesar once delayed crossing a river because lightning struck a nearby tree. It didn't save him, but still, the lesson stuck. Don't ignore the sky. You stop near a grave marker outside the city. Simple, carved roughly. No offerings, no flowers. But someone has left a chicken bone on the stone, and scratched a single word. Red Emmy. I have paid. You don't know what it means. Not really. But you step back. Instinctively. Because some debts don't need explaining. At night, some people leave a candle burning. Not to see, but to keep shadows away. Not all shadows are empty, they say. Not all dreams are dreams. You sleep with your back to the wall tonight. Just in case. Rome may be mighty. Its roads may stretch across continents. Its armies may crush kingdoms. But when the wind howls just right, even Rome listens. Even Rome fears. Because in a world of marble and gods, superstition fills the cracks. And sometimes, in the quiet hours, belief is stronger than logic. The sky softens. Not pink, not gold, just less dark. A slow exhale over tiled rooftops and chimney curls. Rome doesn't awaken suddenly. It stirs, like a beast long used to its cage. You open your eyes and listen. A rooster calls, not dramatically, but dutifully. A second answers, then another. Then silence. It's enough. The city knows. Below, a broom sweeps stone. One long drag. 2 short swipes. A woman throws open a shutter. Dust flies into the street. Someone sneezes. A baby begins to cry. A dog stretches. A man hums. You rise. Not because you must, but because Rome is rising, and so must you. Your body aches, slightly, but in a good way. Worn, like well-used leather. You splash water from a clay jug over your face. It's cold. It wakes you faster than any chant or priest. You dry with a cloth that smells faintly of olives. You dress. Tunic, belt, sandals. Same as yesterday. same as tomorrow. Your neighbor lights her hearth. She mutters a blessing. Not for gods. Not really. Just habit. Words spoken not because she believes, but because her mother believed, and her mother before that. Some fires are older than flame. Outside, the bakers are already shouting. Bread is being pulled from stone ovens. Steam rises like incense to unseen deities of hunger. You catch the scent: barley, sesame, ash. You follow it, not because you're hungry yet, but because bread is mourning in Rome. You pass a boy carrying 2 jugs of water, balanced on a yoke across his shoulders. He whistles. 1 jug leaks slightly. He doesn't care. Water always finds its way home. The forums begin to fill. Merchants arrange figs into pyramids. Butchers sharpen knives slowly. A man recites law codes to no one in particular. A magistrate passes, flanked by 2 scribes, one yawning. No one bows, but everyone notices. Near the temple steps, a group of students gathers. A teacher, robe smudged with ink, reads aloud. Something from Homer, or maybe Virgil. The words float like birds in cold morning air. One boy scribbles. Another stares at a girl across the square. Learning takes many shapes. You pause. You stretch your arms toward the rising sun, a silent greeting to the world. Someone sees you, nods, does the same. Because in Rome, ritual isn't religion. It's rhythm. And rhythm is what keeps a city alive. You buy bread, still warm. The vendor hands it to you with a smile that says, "This is my part. Do yours." So you walk. You eat. You share a piece with a beggar near the baths. He thanks you with his eyes, then eats as if it's a banquet. The day has begun. The wheels are turning. Children run, dogs bark, the sun climbs higher. Rome doesn't rush. It flows, like a river made of people, noise, smoke, purpose. And you are a drop in it. A small one, but real. You return home. For just a moment, to tie a loose sandal strap, to check your pouch, to look out the window. The city pulses beyond it. You close your eyes again, just for a breath, and whisper, "Another day in Rome." And outside, as if in response, a cart rumbles by. The rhythm continues. The bags are packed. Not that you have much. A tunic, a loaf of bread, a small scroll tied in red. Some memories, the kind that don't fit in pouches. You stand at the edge of the city, the gate behind you, the road ahead, and you hesitate. Rome doesn't ask you to stay. It never begs. It simply remains, like the smell of stone after rain or the sound of sandals on marble. You look back. One last time. You see rooftops, stacked like thoughts. Columns that pierce the sky. Statues watching silently. You see the market where you bought salt and heard a story. The alley where someone sang off-key. The bathhouse where strangers spoke your name before you gave it. You see faces. Not clearly, but enough to remember they were real. And you remember the sounds. Not loud anymore. Just clothes, coins, laughter, fountains, birds, the scrape of a knife sharpening for tomorrow's feast. You take it all in, slowly, carefully, like the last sip of wine. You begin to walk. The road is familiar now, not because of the stones, but because of what they've carried. Your feet, your weight, your wonder. A man passes, leading a donkey. He nods. You nod back. No words. Just the silent greeting of two people who have lived Rome, who have felt it, who carry it like a second heartbeat. As you walk further, the city grows smaller, but strangely, not distant, because something inside you has changed. You're not just leaving Rome. You're leaving yourself, too. The version of you that first stepped onto its stones, wide-eyed and unaware. That person remains behind, somewhere between a chariot wheel and a fig seller's wink. And what walks forward now is someone else. You reach a bend in the road. A small tree offers shade. You sit, not from fatigue, but from fullness. You untie the scroll, the one the bookseller gave you, the one not about gods or war. You read it again. The last line says, "Leave nothing behind, but bring everything with you." You fold it carefully, and this time, you understand. Rome will fade. Its bricks will crumble. Its statues will fall. But something lasts longer than stone. Memory, not the grand, carved in marble kind, but the quiet memory of a city lived from within, of bread shared, names spoken, lanterns lit, words whispered into baths and temples and taverns. You rise. You adjust your belt. You walk on. But now, each step sounds different. Lighter, perhaps. Stronger, maybe. And though the road stretches ahead, you are never quite alone. Because behind you, within you, Rome walks too.